that, we're going to go ahead and get started with our opening remarks from our three principals, and we will start this morning with Ms. Ann Marie Buerkle, Acting Chairman of the CPSC.
Thank you very much, Brittany, and good morning, Federal Consumer Attorney Serda and Acting Assistant Deputy Minister Robert Ianniero. Welcome again, both of you, to the CPSC. We are delighted to be hosting this joint summit with both of you. Distinguished visitors, Commissioner Adler, if you wouldn't mind standing up, my esteemed colleague, I believe he's the only commissioner here this morning. He does not really need an introduction, but he is such a good friend of the agency and of safety, so I'm so glad you could join us. Distinguished visitors, presenters, esteemed colleagues, and those joining us via online, we're delighted to have all of you here this morning. And it is truly my honor to welcome all of you to the 4th North American Consumer Product Safety Summit. These summits have been a key element in the fruitful cooperation among the CPSC, Health Canada, and Mexico's Federal Consumer Protection Agency, Profeco. These summits serve both to illuminate our work as well as to stimulate further progress among our three countries. Previous summits held in 2011, 2013, 2015 have been the foundation of trilateral work that has produced substantive, tangible outcomes benefiting the consumers of all of North America. Since consumer products flow easily across our shared borders, our consumers and other stakeholders benefit from this cooperation to the extent that hazardous products do not find their way into our markets. All three of our countries reap the benefits of our cooperation. I would like to mention just a few of the very practical outcomes from our partnership, and we will hear more of these activities throughout the day. Since 2011, we have worked on nearly 800 joint recalls in North America, an increasing number of them trilateral, reducing confusion for the consumer and increasing efficiency for governments as well as industry. After our second summit, the three agencies launched the Early Consultation Initiative with the goal of holding technical consultations on unaddressed consumer product hazards that were not yet part of a formal rule review or regulatory standards or any voluntary standards work. Our first exercise to seek consensus on a solution to address the hazards with AC and USB chargers is bearing fruit. You will hear about the results of this initiative later today. We also cooperate on joint outreach to consumers and to industry. Consumer campaigns in English, Spanish, and French provide important information about product safety to 450 million people from the Nunavut Territory in northern Canada to the state of Chiapas in southern Mexico, because many of the product hazards face the consumers throughout North America, and they are common to all of us. In our outreach to industry, the three agencies cooperate in joint training aimed at ensuring the industry understands both the common as well as the unique requirements of our three jurisdictions. Feedback on our joint training events have been very positive, and we welcome your ideas for any training for future events. Yesterday we held trilateral government meetings. Our staffs were in this very room for several hours yesterday with the assignment of working out further practical assignments and mechanisms for future collaboration over the next years. As you will hear today, the three organizations are now building on solid accomplishments. When our staff reported to us later yesterday afternoon at the end of their meeting, I was so very impressed and encouraged with the progress they made. They took a day-long worth of meetings and they distilled it down to us in a presentation at the end of the day that was very insightful and very informative for all of three principals. I will say that the three of us spent the afternoon on Capitol Hill. We had a tour of the Capitol and spent some time on the House floor and had a delightful afternoon seeing our legislature, which, as we all know, directly affects what we do here at CPSC. So with that, I'd like to ask my colleague, Rogelio, if you would like to speak and say a few words this morning.
Good morning, Denson, I'm going to speak in Spanish. Saludo nuevamente con un enorme reconocimiento a la señora Ann Marie Buerkle, que es presidenta de la Comisión de Seguridad de los Productos de Consumo en los Estados Unidos de América. Gran trabajo el que está haciendo esta comisión, reconocido en todo el continente americano. Saludo también con puntual reconocimiento a Robert Llaniro, viceministro adjunto de Salud de nuestro hermano país, Canadá. Quiero expresar, antes de decir algunas palabras, mi enorme reconocimiento a los grupos de trabajo que vimos operando el día de ayer. Richard nos dio un brief, una síntesis bastante ágil de lo que discutieron, de lo que platicaron, de lo que acordaron. Y bueno, aplaudo que en el marco de esta cuarta cumbre se haya tenido ya un inicio importante el día de ayer, con reserva de lo que seguramente hoy avanzarán estos grupos de trabajo con la participación de expertos en el tema y de funcionarios del sector privado que nos acompañan. Este cuarto encuentro, esta cuarta cumbre sobre seguridad de productos de consumo en América del Norte, resulta vital para asegurar avances serios, avances académicos con sustento científico, para que de manera sostenida nuestras agencias, las tres, podamos ofrecer y garantizar una mayor seguridad a los consumidores cuando utilizan productos de nuestros mercados locales. Aquí hemos escuchado, desde el día de ayer, denuncias sobre productos nocivos o tentativamente nocivos para la salud. Hemos escuchado propuestas de estudio. Creo que incluso, esto es una divagación mía, se podrán asignar responsabilidades por país y esto buscaría eficientar los trabajos que en conjunto estamos realizando y, por supuesto, avanzar con mayor eficacia en la altísima responsabilidad que cada una de nuestras agencias tiene en su territorio. La comercialización de los productos es hoy inequívocamente, y por muy diversas razones, la comercialización es global. Negarlo sería un despropósito. Hoy vemos productos, bienes producidos en Oriente, comercializados por alguna compañía en Europa y entregados en su destino final por una empresa panameña. Ese es el mundo que está cambiando y que se está inequívocamente globalizando. Y es en ese sentido que yo pienso, Robert, que también debemos globalizar las acciones de los organismos que estamos encargados de custodiar, de vigilar, de garantizar la salud y la vida de los consumidores. Si el mundo se globaliza en sus tareas, no veo por qué no debamos de globalizar las tareas de Profeco, del Departamento de Salud y de la Comisión para la Seguridad de Productos de los Estados Unidos. Este sería un trabajo sin duda regional, pero pienso, como dije ayer, que estos trabajos deben de tener cobertura incluso hemisférica y hasta de corte internacional. Esa es la exigencia que el mercado nos va imponiendo sin titubeos y con todo rigor. Nosotros, en el caso específico de esta cuarta reunión, pues nos sentimos muy contentos y muy complacidos, muy estimulados de que esta cumbre se realice con los dos principales socios de México. Inequívocamente, los Estados Unidos de Norteamérica y Canadá son los socios comerciales más importantes que tiene nuestro país, por mucho con respecto del resto del mundo. Debo decirles que así como el mundo está cambiando en términos de la circulación y tránsito de bienes y servicios, también están cambiando, en mi opinión, las actitudes, las visiones y los paradigmas de los agentes involucrados en el fenómeno de consumo. ¿A qué me refiero? He venido observando que muchos proveedores de bienes y servicios han tomado conciencia de que si sus bienes y productos no garantizan, pues por supuesto, primero que nada, la salud y la vida de sus consumidores, están fuera de mercado. Más allá de precios, más allá de rendimientos, más allá de utilidades, el nuevo proveedor, el que tiene la visión moderna de lo que significa lo que él vende y que su producto puede llegar tan lejos como el rincón más apartado de la tierra, si esa visión, y la he encontrado en muchos proveedores, no parte del principio básico de que más allá de utilidades, rentas y preeminencia en el mercado, más allá de eso está, primero que nada, la salud y la seguridad física de sus consumidores. Ese cambio es fundamental. También, debo decirlo, encuentro en la última década un nuevo consumidor, un consumidor más exigente, un consumidor que atiende más los datos que arroja la información comercial y nutricional del producto que va a consumir. Es decir, tenemos un consumidor más educado en términos generales. No es el universo total de lo que quisiéramos, pero sí encontramos gente ya preocupada por orígenes del producto, capacidad nutricional del producto, seguridad en el uso del producto. Los medios de comunicación ayudan mucho en ese sentido. Hoy por la mañana veía yo un reportaje donde en la ABC hablaban de los peligros que implicaba el comprar cargadores de celulares sin un certificado M1 o algo así, que si no lo tiene no garantiza que no pueda producirse un accidente que puede incluso generar un incendio en casa. Es decir, todo mundo está en la tarea de, frente a esta nueva gama de lo más diverso de productos en el mercado, pues creando conciencia en ambos lados del fenómeno de consumo, en la proveeduría y en el consumo mismo. En fin, no me quiero alargar más, solo les quiero decir que junto con estos trabajos sí creo que hay necesidad de pensar en el estímulo, en el impulso de una nueva cultura del consumo. Y consideramos que el trabajo trilateral que esté realizándose hoy aquí, en el marco de esta cumbre, aportará grandes ideas y estrategias para la consolidación de los cambios que México está realizando de manera acelerada en el mundo del consumo de bienes y servicios, partiendo básicamente de manera muy puntual de la salud y la seguridad como primicia. Muchas gracias a todos por sus aportaciones y deseo que su trabajo merezca sobradamente el aplauso de la clase consumidora de nuestras tres naciones. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. Robert?
Thank you. Good morning, bonjour, bienvenido, and thank you all for being here. It is truly a pleasure and an honor to be here with you today, and I would just like to take a moment to thank Acting Chairman Buerkle and her staff here at the U.S. CPSC for hosting this summit and putting it on, so thank you. Although I did work in Health Canada's Consumer Product Safety Directorate quite some time ago, this is actually my first summit that I'm personally attending in my current capacity. And I'm very proud of the work that we, as North American consumer product regulators, have accomplished since that first summit in 2011. Over the years, our level of cooperation has gone from a strong desire to work together to the development of 4 joint project teams and an early consultation initiative under the North American Cooperative Engagement Framework. And I'm very pleased with the concrete outputs of these important initiatives. Take, for example, our laboratory cooperation joint project. Thanks to this group's work, our laboratories came together and collaborated on how we test for lead and phthalates, and are now gearing up for the next project related to flame retardants. Further, the work that our outreach teams have conducted over the years has resulted in several joint outreach campaigns and events that have drawn stakeholder attention to important consumer product safety issues such as furniture tip-overs. Under our Customs Cooperation Joint Project Team, Canada and the United States conducted a targeted exercise to explore methods of information sharing between us, and the U.S. and Mexico also held an import safety surveillance meeting for the same purposes. And then there's our early consultation initiative, under which our three countries work together to arrive at a trilateral consensus on an unaddressed consumer product hazard. For the first time, Health Canada, the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission, and Mexico's Profeco are simultaneously reaching out to our respective standards organizations to request that they add 4 additional tests to the current applicable safety standards to address hazards associated with replacement AC and USB chargers. Over the past few years, we've also put in efforts towards developing a memorandum of understanding between our 3 organizations, and that was signed this past February at ICFSO. And that MOU is based on our mutual recognition of the importance of strengthened cooperation and communication. This MOU supports our shared goal of achieving the highest levels of safety for consumers throughout North America. So, as we retire the North American Cooperative Engagement Framework, the MOU provides the basis for future collaboration in areas of mutual interest to help prevent the trade of hazardous products within North America. And I believe that this degree of cooperation between our regulators remains unparalleled. We are living in an age where, as global trade continues to increase and supply chains become more complex, consumers have an unprecedented access to consumer products, both regulated and unregulated. And while the internet provides access to virtual marketplaces such as eBay or Amazon, it provides access to large amounts of information, some helpful and some potentially harmful. Furthermore, the increased use of e-commerce is effectively erasing our borders. Add to this the increased speed at which products now go from conception to market, and it's an uphill battle for regulators to identify and manage consumer product safety hazards. In light of the age in which we find ourselves, all 3 of our jurisdictions have moved towards greater openness and transparency, and we continue to look at how we can better communicate with industry and the public to promote trust in our regulatory systems and support informed decision-making. Our new MOU speaks to this desire. As global trade continues to increase and supply chains become more complex, our three organizations through the MOU will continue to work together to access and share more data and information to help target our consumer product safety actions. Consumer product safety is a shared responsibility, and it is essential that we improve cooperation not only among regulators and customs authorities, but also with industry, consumer advocacy groups, and other stakeholders. To this end, I hope that you enjoy hearing how we, as regulators, work together, and I'm certainly looking forward to hearing from you on such topics as e-commerce and high-energy batteries, amongst other items this afternoon. Once again, I would like to thank Acting Chairman Buerkle and Federal Consumer Attorney Cerda for their ongoing collaboration and willingness to share their country's knowledge and expertise with us, and I'm very confident that we are on the right track at this summit and that it will continue to propel us into the future. Thank you. Merci. Gracias.
Thank you very much, Robert. Before we begin our program today, I think I would be remiss if I didn't take this opportunity to ask the staffs, and I'll ask the staff, starting with Health Canada, to stand up and be recognized for all of your efforts and for your work in the summit as well as in product safety as well. So stand up so we can recognize all of you. And then I would like to ask all of those from Profeco here to stand up, let us recognize you, and thank you for your service. And lastly, I'd like to ask our team from International here at the CPSC, who is responsible for and did the yeoman's job in putting today and yesterday and today together for the summit. If they would stand up and be recognized, I would appreciate that. You all know very well when these events happen, they seem so seamless and so easy, but behind the scenes and in the weeks and months preceding, they're not so easy and seamless. I also want to recognize this morning ICFSO. Belinda May is going to participate, and I see Mark Schoem in the background. ICFSO provided us a forum to have our historic MOU signing in February, and we greatly appreciate that, and we greatly appreciate the work we do with ICFSO, so thank you for being here. And lastly, I want to recognize, I mentioned the presenters in my welcome, but I think it's important for me to say thank you, sincerely thank you, and I know I speak on behalf of my colleagues for making the trip here and for your willingness to share your information and your insights with us. It is, yesterday I talked about communication and engagement. It is the key to success in consumer product safety. So your willingness to come here today and to participate is greatly appreciated and only enhances our North American Summit here. So I will stop my comments now and hope that you enjoy the day, that it's a substantive day, and we'll look forward to catching up with you later this afternoon. Thank you all very much. Enjoy your day.
Our first panel today is North American Cooperation. The panel will be moderated by Carlos Ponce Beltran, Deputy Attorney for Telecommunications, Profeco. The three regulatory agencies will report on the activities and achievements of the trilateral joint project teams, including industry and consumer outreach, customs cooperation, laboratory cooperation, early consultations, and joint recalls. Our panelists this morning are Jeff Barrett, Director, Risk Management Bureau, Health Canada, Raimundo Rodriguez Diego, Deputy Attorney for Verification, Profeco, and Tilva Bernal, Program Manager for the Western Hemisphere, CPSC. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Excuse me, I'm going to moderate in Spanish. Thank you very much. Bienvenidos al panel número 1 de este importante summit, el cual va a abordar a través de nuestros tres panelistas el tema de la cooperación en América del Norte en los temas de seguridad de productos. Las tres agencias aquí presentes, Health Canada, Profeco y CPSC, reportarán para ustedes y quienes nos escuchan a través del streaming las actividades y logros de los equipos que llevan proyectos conjuntos, incluyendo cuestiones de vinculación con la industria y los consumidores, los temas de aduanas, cooperación de los laboratorios, las cuestiones de los recalcs conjuntos. Y para este panel, cada uno de ellos contará con 15 minutos. Si pueden darnos espacio para futuras preguntas al final del panel, se los apreciaríamos mucho para que esta mesa sea más interactiva. Y tendrán ese tiempo para hablar los distintos tópicos a los que me he referido. Y para empezar, vamos a solicitar a Jeff Barrett, que es el director de la Oficina de Gestión de Riesgos de la Dirección de Seguridad de los Productos de Consumo del Health Canada, que inicie con su presentación. Adelante, Jeff.
Muchas gracias. Buenos días, bonjour, and good morning, everyone. My name is Jeff Barrett, and I am the Director of the Consumer Product Safety Program's Bureau of Risk Management. So this morning I'm pleased to provide an overview of some of our trilateral work across our three joint project teams for consumer outreach, industry outreach, and customs cooperation, all of which follow our commitments that were made at the second North American Consumer Product Safety Summit, where we committed to promote consumer awareness on the use of safe consumer products, as well as conduct training and outreach for activities for our industry partners. I think we can all agree that when the same message comes out to all North Americans and our stakeholders, it resonates further when we can provide clarity together and consistency in messaging, and it fosters regulatory stability for whenever we have regulators speaking from a single voice. Both the consumer and industry outreach joint project teams began this work in the spring of 2014, and since that time, members from all three countries have participated in regular teleconferences to share our outreach activities and to develop joint strategies and initiatives. And staff from all three jurisdictions have taken advantage of major North American trade shows or conferences such as ICFSO that was identified earlier this morning. So to start with, for the Consumer Outreach Joint Project Team, the goal of this group has been to coordinate joint outreach activities to consumers and to develop consistent messaging on product safety issues of common interest. We've worked together to align key messaging through educational campaigns, joint press releases, and social media, which has enabled us to not only amplify the message, but also extend our outreach to consumers. In 2014, we worked on social media campaigns for sports safety and coordinated our outreach activities around keeping young children safe from health and safety hazards during Baby Safety Month. And in that same year, we worked on a trilateral press event in Ottawa to kick off Toy Safety Week with a high-level representation from all three countries. That same day, we also announced our first trilateral recall on a juvenile product. Additional activities have also included us coordinating our activities to ensure that all North Americans have a safe holiday season during Holiday Safety Month. And during Poison Prevention Week in March 2015, we worked together to get the message out about laundry detergent pods and child safety requirements. And last year, we coordinated outreach on backyard safety in May of 2017. Moving forward, the Consumer Outreach Joint Projects team is beginning to explore new ways in which our three countries can continue to cooperate on consumer outreach under the new trilateral memorandum, which, as mentioned, was signed this past February at ICFSO. Through the Industry Outreach Joint Project team, we have worked hard to work with industry stakeholders that sell in all three markets. While we do work hard where possible to align regulations and rules where it makes sense to do so, we do recognize that there are sometimes legislative differences and regulatory or rule differences, and it's important for us to communicate where these exist and what that means for companies. A good example of this was when we gave our first trilateral presentation, again at ICFSO in February 2014, in which we explored the recalls process in Canada, Mexico, and the United States, which highlighted our work to strengthen regulatory alignment efforts in North America. Since then, we've also participated in joint panels, such as at the Las Vegas ABC Kids Fair in September 2014, and there was a U.S.-Canada presentation at the North American International Toy Fair, and again at ICFSO, a trilateral panel emphasizing where we collaborate and how that works. We have also organized bilateral Canada-U.S. webinars on toy safety, a trilateral webinar on safety requirements for textiles and apparels with an emphasis on products for children. And moving forward, under the new trilateral Memorandum of Understanding, the Industry Outreach Joint Project Team will continue to work to coordinate outreach activities to inform industry on the requirements and issues of common interest within North America. And I'll just take this opportunity to echo Acting Chairman Buerkle's comment earlier this morning that if there are any areas or issues of interest, whether that's from a consumer perspective or industry guidance that you think would help, certainly we would appreciate hearing what those might be and seeing what possibilities there might be for us to provide those outreach activities for you. The final project team that I'll talk about this morning is our Customs Cooperation Joint Project Team, which involves our not only product safety partners, but also our borders and custom partners. The focus of our activities have obviously worked along bilateral relationships with Profeco and the US CPSC and ourselves in the US CPSC. I will not be able to report too much on our work with Mexico, bilateral border work right now. In a first of its kind, consumer product safety regulators and border officials from the US and Canada held a consumer product safety tabletop exercise. This happened in July of 2015. Health Canada hosted the exercise, and in addition to ourselves and CPSC, also included the Canadian Border Service Agency and the US Border Protection Office. When the group met in Ottawa, they focused on understanding each other's import processes, comparing targeting methodologies, and identifying the best practices, as well as inefficiencies in our processes and our communications. During the, we also then highlighted what the various business needs that were unique to each country, not only between the countries, but also within, which led to a set of recommendations in the spring of 2016, where Health Canada and the US CPSC established a targeting exercise using different methodologies to intercept suspected hazardous consumer products. Now, this targeting exercise explored the methods of information sharing between Health Canada and the US CPSC with the goal of identifying the high-risk consumer products associated with foreign vendors that were suspected of manufacturing or distributing consumer products. the methods for identifying the product types and the foreign vendors of common interest between the regulatory authorities. And it established developing a process to share the results of risk mitigation between all the parties and participants in identifying whether there were legislative or regulatory impediments to that process, as well as exploring ways that Canada and the U.S. could continue to work in greater collaboration to intercept suspected hazard consumer products and share more information. And during this exercise, the U.S. CPSC and Health Canada collaborated to identify the types of consumer products and companies of interest for the project. Given the similar regulatory and laboratory requirements in the U.S. and Canada, for toys for children under 3 years of age with small parts and with excess lead levels of approximately 90 to 100 milligrams per kilogram of total body weight, were considered the best suited candidate product for this project. The selection of companies of interest was based on information that was related to non-compliant companies, as noted in the U.S. CPSC volatile list, as well as Health Canada's own internal database. And going forward, it was recommended that another project will be undertaken following the launch of our Canada Border Service Agency's new risk assessment program and maintenance later on this year. Among other things, this system will allow the CBSA, the Canada Border Service Agency, to identify more effective targets, as well as to allow for a combination of targets where HS codes, or product identification codes, port codes, and country of origin codes can be used together. As reported in the third North American Consumer Product Safety Summit, the U.S. CPSC and the U.S. Customs Border Protection Agency worked with officials from Profeco and their border agency, SAT, their customs agency, and staff from the four agencies convened for a week of meetings in Mexico City and visited SAT's targeting facility. There, the participants learned about each other's processes and discussed ways to facilitate collaboration and sharing information between the agencies in the same country and outside the country. The Customs Cooperation Joint Project Team will work to continue to identify the best practices for targeting, sampling, and analyzing products at ports of entry, and to improve coordination when a hazardous product reaches any of the three borders. So that's a very brief overview, a very kind of a snapshot of the three bilateral, trilateral working groups that all will continue to identify best practices for targeting. And I think I'll leave it at that.
Muchas gracias, Geoff Barrett, por su muy completo informe y sobre todo el reconocimiento al gobierno de Canadá por la disposición de esta cooperación trilateral para proteger a los consumidores de los tres países que formamos esta alianza. A continuación, corresponde el turno de hacer su reporte y su presentación a nombre de Profeco, y para ello presento a mi colega, el subprocurador de verificación de la Profeco en México, el maestro Raimundo Rodríguez, quien hará, en presencia de nuestro jefe aquí, el reporte de las actividades que hemos estado haciendo por parte de México. Adelante, Raimundo.
Muchísimas gracias. Muy buenos días a todos. El trabajo, lo que les quiero exponer el día de hoy, son dos vertientes. El trabajo que hemos realizado a través del laboratorio, que han sido, se hicieron dos trabajos conjuntos. El primero tuvo que ver con la tecnología XRF, que es un equipo manual para detectar metales pesados en PVC. Metales pesados tales como aluminio, zinc, latón, sílice, estaño y plástico. Y estos podían ser, o la idea, o lo que se acordó fue revisar tanto en PVC como en plásticos que no son a base de PVC. Estos trabajos se iniciaron en abril del 2014 y previo a que los equipos determinaron los materiales, lo que se iba a buscar, se escogió la metodología, se elaboró un protocolo para que todos estuviéramos haciendo la misma prueba, con el mismo método, con la misma metodología. Para nosotros fue muy importante el resultado, ya que en nuestro país, en México, 90% de las verificaciones que realizan nuestros inspectores son en campo. Entonces, el equipo manual permite la facilidad de hacerlo ahí, siempre y cuando este material sea homogéneo. Digamos, se puede medir en una bicicleta la parte de la pintura si es que contiene plomo, sin necesidad de llevarlo a un laboratorio para un proceso, que sería el caso de las pruebas que no son homogéneas. ¿Por qué para nosotros es muy importante? Como lo mencioné, pues 90% de las inspecciones que nosotros realizamos en todo el país se realizan en el campo. Nos permite dar una precisión en ese momento y ver si ese producto es seguro o no es seguro para los consumidores. El reto que tenemos, y lo mismo lo encontramos en el siguiente estudio que presentaré, que es el de los talatos, es cómo poder acoplar esa tecnología a la regulación que actualmente tenemos en México. Pues acorde con nuestra ley, quienes realicen las pruebas tienen que estar certificados. Lo podemos hacer nosotros en Profeco o lo puede hacer un laboratorio que esté acreditado por la Secretaría de Economía. La manera o el gran esfuerzo que estamos haciendo es fortalecer nuestras leyes para que no podamos tener huecos legales que permitan, si es que llegamos a encontrar un problema, que no puedan ser sancionados, porque lo mencionaba el procurador en su intervención, una parte es la detección del problema, pero también otra parte no menos importante es la sanción a ese fabricante o proveedor que llegue, en un probable caso, a utilizar alguna pintura o a utilizar algún método o sistema que no sea adecuado a las mediciones que tenemos estandarizadas a 90 partículas por millón. En México creo que en algunos casos el problema no es muy alejado a lo que enfrentan ustedes en Estados Unidos o en Canadá. Tenemos casas muy antiguas que todavía mantienen la pintura original, al igual que mobiliario, que puede tener alguno de estos metales pesados, plomo principalmente. Tenemos muchos juguetes igual, cerámicas, utilizamos nosotros mucho a base de barro, pinturas, recipientes para almacenamiento de agua o almacenamiento de alimentos. Entonces, esa es la relevancia para nosotros de poder contar con esta tecnología y que podamos llevarla a la unión con la legislación y podamos tener algo que proteja verdaderamente a nuestros consumidores en México. El siguiente ejercicio de los talatos fue también algo novedoso para México y muy importante. Estos trabajos comenzaron en el 2016 y la idea de determinar con estas técnicas y análisis los talatos es ver esos aditivos que se emplean para suavizar los plásticos y darles flexibilidad y que van asociados con riesgos directamente a la salud, como es el caso, puede ser el caso del cáncer. Trabajamos estas pruebas interlaboratorios tanto con CPSC como con Health Canada. Se recibió una capacitación en el 2017 en Ottawa, en las instalaciones del laboratorio de Health Canada, y el resultado es que estamos trabajando en una normatividad en México cosa que no teníamos, pero que tendremos dentro de muy pronto, para regular la presencia de los ftalatos en el artículos de consumo, como son los juguetes, artículos escolares, que es un tema muy importante y muy delicado para nosotros, la población vulnerable, los niños. Lo mismo también en biberones para bebé, impermeables, salvavidas, entre algunos otros. Y el reto, como mencionaba tanto en el ejercicio de XRF como de ftalatos, es plasmarlo en un marco regulatorio, para mí ha sido muy fácil ver la experiencia, el gran trabajo que se ha hecho tanto en Canadá como en Estados Unidos en este sentido, y poder agarrar esas mejores prácticas que ya existen y poderlos llevar a México, poderlo plasmar en una normatividad y podamos proteger aún mejor a nuestros consumidores. El último tema que les quiero yo exponer va relacionado a los recalls. Este es un tema que ha funcionado bastante bien, sin embargo también nos presenta algunos retos. De las 24 alertas que hemos tenido desde el 2013, 9 de estas han sido conjuntas, 2 han sido bilaterales y simultáneas y 13 han sido conjuntas y simultáneas. Aquí lo que yo destacaría fuera la experiencia que nos ha dado este tipo de alertas, y lo mencionábamos ayer en las discusiones que tuvimos, hay algunas ocasiones en que la alerta se emite única y exclusivamente en Estados Unidos, ya sea porque el producto no se vende en México. Entonces, algunas veces o creemos que necesitamos una mejor comunicación para poder determinar si el producto únicamente se está vendiendo sea en Canadá o en Estados Unidos, o también está ingresando al mercado mexicano. Porque como funciona ahorita es, al ver nosotros las alertas en los portales, tanto de Estados Unidos como de Canadá, nosotros mandamos un requerimiento a la industria establecida en México. La gran mayoría de las veces nos han contestado que ese producto no se comercializa en México, pero creo que tenemos una ventana de oportunidad muy importante de comunicación por este mismo fenómeno que mencionaba el procurador, de cómo se están dando el comercio actualmente y principalmente basado en el comercio electrónico. Ayer mencionaba que hay producto que ahorita se puede comprar en línea, voy a poner un ejemplo, textiles, y entra a México por la aduana, que estamos realizando también un trabajo muy importante en fortalecer la comunicación. Tenemos personal de Profeco en las aduanas haciendo labores aleatorias. Pero ese producto textil que se puede comprar en línea entra a México sin el cumplimiento de las normas para prendas que nosotros exigimos, para ropa. Entonces, es una gran ventana de oportunidad que tenemos en los 3 países para poder fortalecer tanto la comunicación como el intercambio de información, que fue algo que amablemente nuestros colegas, tanto de Estados Unidos y Canadá, nos ofrecieron, poder compartir las bases de datos, la información que tenemos, y así ser más eficientes y eficaces en la protección que todos tenemos hacia nuestros respectivos consumidores. Sería todo lo que tuviera yo que reportar el día de hoy.
Muchas gracias, Raimundo Rodríguez, por tu amplio informe de la actividad de coordinación con los países hermanos de Canadá y Estados Unidos. Y a continuación corresponde el turno para hacer su presentación a la gerente de programas del hemisferio occidental de la Comisión de Seguridad de Productos del Consumidor, la CPSC de Estados Unidos de América, nuestra muy querida amiga Tilber Bernal, a quien aprovecho este momento para agradecerle a nombre de Profeco la coordinación, el apoyo que nos ha dado a nosotros y nuestros amigos de Canadá en este importante evento, y que en representación de Ann Marie Buerkle ha hecho un gran trabajo de enlazarnos para que este evento sea un éxito muy ejecutivo y muy productivo. Tilben Bernal, tienes el uso de la palabra.
Muchas gracias. Good morning, everyone. Good morning to my fellow panelists, and good morning to our principals. Thank you for your great support for this work that we do here in the international programs, and with the support, of course, of the technical experts and the different offices in each of the agencies. I want to tell you that I'm very excited about this early consultation initiative and having the opportunity to have the stakeholders hear what the regulators have been working on. Sometimes, you know, we do this in the background and there's a lot of effort to accomplish our missions for the safety of consumers and also to address the requests from stakeholders. So the early consultation is just one example. You've heard my esteemed colleagues talk about the other projects. So we want to have that conversation with you today, and we're very glad that you're here to give us your ideas on future opportunities for collaboration as well. We've heard requests from industry before on what could be done about alignment. We know that it creates costs for manufacturers. It may create confusion for consumers when there's no alignment on one product safety requirement. So we've heard those concerns and requests, and we've looked for ways to address that. So we had a pilot a few years ago with colleagues from Canada, from the European Union, and others, and we learned a lot from that pilot. One of the things we learned is that alignment on already established requirements and regulations is very challenging. It is also difficult to align when there is active work on either a voluntary standard or the process of starting a regulation. So we put our minds together, and we wanted to be proactive. So we created this team of technical experts from the three agencies to come up with ideas of products that had some unaddressed hazards. So that was basically the first prerequisite to put forward a suggestion. So it would be a product that none of the three agencies was working on actively, and after some deliberation, we decided to start working on AC chargers and USB chargers. So we had our experts working together on different things. First, we looked at the voluntary standards that were available in the three jurisdictions. So you know, for example, here in the United States we have one, Canada uses another one, and Mexico had another one. And so we looked at the different tests available that were in those voluntary standards. Then we gathered samples. The labs started testing those samples, and it was really great to see so much consensus on what the testings were going to be. We created a joint document on what each lab was going to do. Then we came out with a report We came out with a consensus report of those tests, and this has never been done before, so it's truly historical and really just a great example of the level of collaboration that we've been able to accomplish. So I'm happy to report that we're very close to finalizing that project with the AC chargers and USB chargers. We will be sending a letter with suggestions to our respective standard development organizations to include tests that we consider would be important to have to increase the safety of those products and address the hazards that we looked at during the testing phase. We will continue the efforts within this early consultation initiative. It will be Early Consultation Initiative 2.0, and we will look for new products to continue to align and obviously answer the requests that we've been hearing from industry on try to align even more. So again, just want to thank you for being here. We hope that this afternoon and well the rest of the day will be very interesting and will create this conversation that we want to have between the stakeholders and the regulators here. So thank you.
Gracias a ti, Tilben, por tus mensajes, por tus palabras. Y según nuestro reloj, tenemos un espacio para que quienes quieran hacer alguna pregunta para cualquiera de los tres integrantes del panel, lo hagan. Por favor, se les acercará un micrófono para que dirijan su pregunta al panelista sobre el tópico que les interese que se haya abordado en esta mesa. ¿Quién quiere participar? Nos da su nombre y la agencia que representa, por favor.
Thank you very much for this excellent panel. My name is Sarah Wilson. I'm a lawyer with Covington & Burling here in Washington, D.C. I was very interested in hearing about the testing cooperation efforts and was wondering if you could share with us whether the letter that you just described that will be sent to testing standard setting bodies on AC and UCB chargers, whether that will be made public, and if so, at approximately what time frame do you expect, if you know, and if you could give us some insight, if allowable, into the 4 different tests that you plan to recommend.
¿Quién contesta de ustedes? ¿Tilben? ¿Geoff?
Well, in terms of making it public, yes, it is our normal procedure to post the letters that we send, at least for the CPSC. So as soon as we send that, we will be posting it, on our website. In terms of time frame, that's a more difficult question to answer, because we have to work with the other organizations, and we have different processes for clearing documents. But what I can tell you is that we're very close to coming to a finalization of that letter. So it should be relatively soon. In terms of the specific tests that are included, I am not the technical person, so definitely I don't want to say the wrong thing. But I'll be happy to follow up with you on that. So, but thank you for your question.
We still have time for 2 more questions, please. Your name, your agency, please.
Good morning. First, I'd like to say thank you to the three principals for arranging for this opportunity for all of us here today and those on the webcast, and to the panel as well for very insightful comments. My name is Belinda May, and I am here today because I have 2 day jobs. My first day job is I am a partner at Denton's U.S. LLP. Thank you. I represent industry in the first day job. And in my other day job, I'm president of ICPHSO. And I am here on behalf of ICPHSO as well with my colleague Mark Schoem, who Acting Chairman Buerkle already introduced. He's right back there. He's our executive director. He's waving. Yes, he's waving. And so I'm going to say a question on behalf of my first day job, and then I'm going to say one on behalf of my second. So as respects the first, I echo Sarah's comments about the value of the forthcoming consensus letter, and would ask that that be as available as possible to industry because I believe that it will inform industry's ability to approach you in the future for compliance matters, which we're not here really to talk about so much today, although nudge nudge to Carol Cave, who's also smiling in the back. So that would be very helpful for us on the industry side. I'd also like to comment that with respect to compliance, that is an area, the more that can be done for industry to understand that if a report is filed in one jurisdiction, if there were any way to have cross-border reports, that would be phenomenal. Okay, now we're shifting to the other day job. So at the last ICPHSO, a panel on Friday morning polled the audience, it was a large audience of hundreds, to ask whether there would be interest between, not only in North America, 3-agency collaboration on standard, but rather the world. And 90% of the audience said that they would welcome a process standard for innovative products. And we would, I'm just saying as president of ICPHSO that we very much welcome the participation of Health Canada, of Profeco, and the CPSC as we work to create a task force, an independent task force, to explore this possibility to further reduce historic notions of borders. Thank you.
Who is going to make a comment? Jeff Tilman?
I can just echo at whether it's at ICPHSO, whether it's at other conferences we attend, reporting requirements and where they align, where there are some differences, being clear on whether that actually triggers a report in Canada and not in the U.S. or both at the same time. That's a common theme, and I've certainly been talking with my colleagues, with Tolga Yelkin, our new Director General for the Consumer Product Safety Directorate, and that is certainly something that Health Canada sees there could be value, not just in messaging out, but starting to consider whether there might be a helpful product. This isn't an elaborate, thick tome of direction, but almost a placemat document, something that's really practical, hands-on. And so that's certainly a priority for us over this next year to start to look towards other tools like that. In addition, once we get that, to then be able to, not just at ICPHSO, but we welcome the opportunity at other conferences or trade shows or what have you to help continue that ongoing education that needs to happen.
Belinda, thank you very much. Completely agree that it is very important to have a good understanding of where do companies go when they need to report, and how we can continue to spread the message on the importance of joint recalls and the benefits for all stakeholders. We could start with just pointing that you have some emails there that will take you to the right places in each of the agencies, and we will continue like Jeff said, that conversation on how we streamline the process for everyone to be able to talk to the agencies and know what the process is going to look like. So thank you for that question and comment.
If you don't have any more questions, we appreciate the participation of Geoff, Chilblain, and Wright. Thank you very much for participating in this panel. Thanks you, everybody.
Well, thank you very much to our first panel. And we are right at almost the 10:30 mark. So we are going to take a break for 15 minutes. Again, a quick reminder, if you do leave the fourth floor, make sure that you remember that you will need to go through the security process again. And one other note that I wanted to let everyone know, apparently a few people are having some trouble with their headsets. If you're having interference with your headset, it's probably because you're too close to the monitors that are around the room. So feel free to move your seat, and that should rectify the issue with some of the interference that a few people had mentioned that they were having. So if everyone could be back in the room at 10:45, we'll reconvene for our second panel. Thank you.
It's working. I don't know what happened.
So if everyone could please find their seats, we are right at 10:45, so we're going to go ahead and start our second panel once everyone's seated. All our people? Okay. Okay, so we are ready for our second panel this morning, which will be e-commerce. The second panel will be moderated by Jim Tucholsky, the Director of Office of Import Surveillance here at the CPSC. Stakeholders and regulators will discuss the benefits and challenges posed by the rapid expansion of e-commerce. Points of focus will include discussion of industry processes and best practices, as well as how can regulators help platforms help their sellers and consumers. Our panelists include Doug Hyland, Compliance Program Manager for Zulily, Stuart Schmidt, Manager, Trade Compliance for UPS, and Carlos Ponce Beltran, Deputy Attorney for Telecommunications, Profeco.
Thank you, Brittany. Good morning. As Brittany said, my name is Jim Tucholsky. I'm the Director of Import Surveillance here at CPSC. I want to welcome everybody here today for our panel on e-commerce. I'm going to keep my opening remarks very brief so we can turn it over to our panel to hear from them. So e-commerce really doesn't need an introduction. For most of us, it's become part of our daily life. We can order virtually any product online today and have it sitting at our door tomorrow. So it really has changed the way a lot of us shop, receive products. It's really been a monumental change to the way the world works over the last several years. You know, just to put e-commerce into perspective a little bit, I pulled some data offline. Total e-commerce sales in the U.S. for 2017 were estimated at $453.5 billion, which was an increase of 16% over 2016. U.S. e-commerce sales are expected to grow to $530 billion by 2020, and worldwide e-commerce sales are expected to be $4 trillion by 2020. So those numbers are a little staggering when you consider, you know, how much commerce was flowing through e-commerce just several years ago. So to talk about this subject today, we have three very qualified individuals, and I want to thank each of them for participating today. Doug has come from Seattle. Stuart has been around the country, was at a conference in California earlier this week, and has flown here today specifically for this. So I want to thank them, and Carlos, thank you as well. So I'd like to just do a brief bio, review the bios of the three, and then I'm going to turn it over to Doug, and we're going to go in order. Our plan, much like the first panel, is to do about 15 minutes per presenter, which hopefully will leave us some time at the end for questions and answers. So Doug is Doug Hylands from Zulily. Upon graduating from college, Doug moved to the West Coast seeking fame and fortune. Instead, he ended up working in regulatory compliance. He started his career working in trade finance and customs brokerage, and then product development for a specialty retailer. In his current role, Doug oversees product compliance for Zulily, LLC, an online flash sales e-commerce retailer, joining when the company was a startup. Stuart Schmidt from UPS. As a manager of trade services for UPS Supply Chain Solutions, Stuart is a member of the corporate compliance team that ensures UPS compliance procedures align with Customs and Border Protection and partner government agency regulations. His compliance area of responsibility is primarily the eastern United States. In addition to providing consulting services to UPS customers, he serves as an internal subject matter expert for trade agreements, foreign trade zones, anti-dumping, countervailing duty, and broker-importer self-assessment performance audit programs. Stewart has been a licensed customs broker since 1996, a member of the Trade Support Network since 2002, and became a trade ambassador in 2004. He was an early champion of CBP's latest commercial trade processing system, the Automated Commercial Environment. He is currently a member of the Trade Support Network, Customs and Entry Committees, and co-chair of the International Trade Data System Committee. And Stuart and I work together on the International Trade Data Systems work that's done, and he is a trade representative to that group as well. So Carlos Ponce from Profeco. Carlos has been a busy man. You noticed that he moderated our first panel this morning, and we appreciate him being a part of this as well. Carlos holds a degree in law and a master's degree in criminal sciences and criminology. He is currently the deputy attorney for telecommunications at Profeco. Carlos has engaged in various public administration activities at the local, state, and federal levels. He is the co-author of the 2012 book, Computer Technology Law in Mexico, and the 2016 Supreme Court publication entitled The Constitution in Society and Digital Economies, Selected Topics in Mexican Digital Law. Carlos also has served as the Deputy Ombudsman for Profeco since 2015 and the head of the Transparency Unit at Profeco since December 2015. So we have three very qualified panelists today to talk about e-commerce. And without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Doug to talk about the work that Zulily does.
All right, thank you. Welcome again, everybody. I'm going to give a brief overview of Zulily, what our company is founded on, talk a little bit about how we approach product safety and some of the things that we're hoping to align with our regulators. So I'll go ahead and get started. For those of you that are unfamiliar with Zulily, hopefully most of you are, but just in case you're not, we like to call ourselves a fresh, fast, and fun retailer. We're always looking for something new and different to offer up on our customers on a daily basis, and we sell a wide variety of products from women's apparel to kids apparel to shoes to toys to home decor, health and beauty products, gifts. I mean, you name it, it's probably available for sale on our site at any given time. We do this by working with a large number of vendors. We work with large, well-known manufacturers to mom and pop people working out of their garage to everywhere and everything in between. We also have a very large merchant organization that's very driven to find the newest and freshest product and always trying to find like the latest trend. We also have a pretty different business model from traditional online retailers or a traditional brick and mortar store. So I love this slide because it just talks about how this company is just very different. It's really hard to kind of wrap your head around the fact that the company is only 8 years old. We're almost at like $1.5 billion in sales, and we have a very different, really kind of turned on its head business model. So what we do is we basically put up what our founder liked to say, we put up a new site every single day. It's like publishing a newspaper every single day is how we refer to it. For those millennials in the room, a newspaper is how your grandparents get their news. Just to put it into perspective. Basically what we are is we're a flash sale site. So we'll curate these, what we call events. We'll either have it as a theme surrounding something like children's sleepover with your best friends or going to camp, or something that's branded if we're working with one of our large brands. Anyways, we'll put that into what we call, like I said, a 3-day event. We'll run those products for 3 days, during which point we'll be collecting all of our customer orders. When those events are done after 3 days, that event is over, we cut a purchase order to our vendor, who then ships the products to one of our 4 FCs, including an FC that we just recently opened in China. So we are very light on inventory, thanks to this model. Again, once those items are received at one of our fulfillment centers, we kind of take everything that our customers ordered, put it in one package to the best of our abilities to ship it out to our customers. So again, we're really focused on kind of keeping our startup mentality going and leveraging a lot of our homegrown technologies to really help drive our business and really help my department drive some of our compliance efforts. So the way that we manage product safety, just thinking about, like, go forward. There it goes. All right. Yeah, so just knowing the large number of vendors that we work with and the large merchant organization that we work with, we really have to take a risk-based approach, which is, I think, a pretty common thing that most people and most regulators will do. So we really want to focus our efforts on where the highest risk to the business is. So again, where we focus our efforts are kind of on our direct import vendors. So anything that's crossing a border, we will concentrate our efforts on that. We also, for the e-commerce small package shipments, and we do a large number of shipments kind of on a daily basis. We'll be shipping things, like I mentioned, we have an FC in China. We'll be shipping from our FC in China directly to our customers in the US or to our customers in Australia. We're starting to ship directly from that fulfillment center to other destinations as well. We also ship directly from our fulfillment centers in the US kind of across the world to a lot of the countries that are listed up here. We take the same kind of risk-based approach to those small package vendors that we do with, with all of our larger direct import vendors. And then we also focus a lot of our efforts, of course, on product category, right? So where there's more regulations like children's sleepwear is where my department will spend most of our time working with our vendors and our merchants on compliance than a different type of product that maybe isn't as heavily regulated. So we kind of take that approach, and then we also apply that similar outlook, if you will, by jurisdiction. So we kind of break it out by our largest markets. The United States is our biggest market, followed by Canada, Australia, EU, and Mexico. So we take a look at our products, we take a look at our vendors, and we'll take a look at the rules in those different jurisdictions and make sure that the products are compliant before we'll sell them in those jurisdictions. We have some technology built into our systems to leverage our ability to turn those vendors on or off, or turn those products off or on, depending on the jurisdiction. And then, how can regulators help? It was actually really interesting to hear previous statements about this. I'm probably going to be repeating a lot of things that have already been said this morning, but the first thing, thinking about all of the small parcels that are sending, not only by our company, but by any basically online retailer, and a lot of, I think, brick and mortars are starting to get into this as well, but we would really love some clarity on the small parcel rules. There's clearly a lot of focus on this area amongst a lot of the different regulators and a lot of the different jurisdictions, but I feel like there's a great need for some clarity on how product safety rules will be applied to these small parcel shipments, how customs regulations, how they're going to enforce intellectual property. There's a whole lot of, again, I think there's a whole lot of clarity that could be very helpful to companies such as mine. I threw up the incident reporting. This has been mentioned a couple of times this morning. A little more clarity among the different jurisdictions about what triggers an incident report and what doesn't, and kind of following that, like streamlining some of the recall processes amongst the jurisdictions. We've had a lot of, I think we've done a really good job with like the CPSC and Health Canada to kind of streamline that. If we could continue those efforts amongst other jurisdictions, that would be really helpful. Because there's a lot of these products, like, you just don't know. Like they mentioned this morning on one of the panels, I think they mentioned in Mexico they didn't know if a bicycle would actually, one of the products hadn't been sold there. I'm pretty sure that it was sold there. Maybe not probably not by our company, but there is a retailer that probably shipped that to a customer in Mexico. And a good thing, if you will, one of the really good things about this e-commerce space is the companies have the data, right? We know everything that we've sold to everybody and where it's shipped, when it was shipped. All of this information is available. So it's all available, and we can share that information. It's just how do we streamline that process so that we don't have to continually kind of submit the same information in different formats to different regulators. So some clarity on that would be very helpful. The other one I have on here is parity, which has also been talked about this morning. I was really happy to hear them talking about taking a look at testing for lead and phthalates. You can look at some test reports, and if that product is being sold across different jurisdictions, I mean, I've seen 20-page test reports for toys with all kinds of different phthalate and lead testing methods called out on the test report. Really looking forward to seeing how that can be streamlined and having some parity among the different types of testing protocols. Same with documentation. There's a lot of, I think, opportunities for the agencies to streamline and have some parity on documentation requirements across the different jurisdictions, and kind of just generally same with labeling and marketing. There's a lot of paperwork that's generated in this area, and everybody understands the intent and wants to do the right thing in this area, but again, it's the more that we can kind of streamline some of that documentation and testing requirements, the better off it'll be, and I think longer term it'll really help enforcement in this area. So I just wanted to close out by saying, for me in particular, I think it's a very exciting yet very anxiety-producing time, because there's new markets and new products that are coming onto these new marketplaces on a daily basis, and it's really hard to keep up with the speed that things are moving at these days. So it's best for all of us to cooperate together to figure out what we can do to kind of wrap our arms around this, because the world is moving very, very, very fast, and we need to be able to keep up with it. Thank you.
Thanks, Doug. Yeah, I mean, I agree with that sentiment 100% about how fast things change. I know one of the challenges that CPSC faces, and I think the U.S. federal government and probably other governments as well, is being that these packages are moving so fast and there's so many of them. How do you get the right data to be able to do risk assessment so that you're not stopping shipments unnecessarily? I mean, I think that's a challenge that we all face, and I think, you know, working together with the trade to be able to address that issue is going to be very important moving forward. So thank you very much, Doug. I'd next like to turn it over to Stuart Schmidt from UPS.
Thank you. All right, working now. Thank you very much, Jim. I appreciate very much the opportunity to be here and share some of our ideas and our challenges and how we can work with the regulations. You know, you had mentioned that the challenge is, you order today and it delivers to your door, tomorrow, right? But the piece that you left out there was that it may be coming from Zulily in China and it still gets there tomorrow. So, and that's where UPS steps in and tries to, as a carrier, those uniform rules and uniform documentations that Doug talked about will be beneficial, and we'll walk through that here. So a little bit about UPS. Most of you, I'm sure, have heard of us. We are the world's largest package delivery company. We deliver about 19 million packages per day on a normal day. Now that will double at Christmas time, so it's a huge undertaking, and again, streamlining those processes and the regulations and uniformity, through the region would only benefit that. That represents about 3% of the world's gross domestic product on a daily basis, right? So it's a huge endeavor, and 6% of the U.S. commerce goes through our system every day. We do serve more than 200 countries around the world, and so it really is a challenge and a benefit to us to speak to groups like this and to help us understand and work together to streamline and facilitate the processes. So let's talk a little bit about e-commerce and the macro overview. Jim mentioned a little bit this morning about the growth. One thing that I will say about e-commerce is that, I understand that this is a, North American conference, but e-commerce is worldwide. So we talked about the, the growth just within the United States of e-commerce, but this slide represents the growth that is going on around the world. And the reality is that, that e-commerce, as we have already mentioned, it can come from anywhere. Even though it's going to the North American region, it can come from anywhere and will come from anywhere in the world. So, one of the other questions that I do get asked a lot is, what is e-commerce really, right? So how do you define e-commerce? And, when I really boil it down to the fact that, to me it's catalog sales, right? So we think back to the Sears, Roebuck, catalog days. Now, I never ordered from them. I'm not that old, but but I do understand that at one point in time you could actually buy a house through the Sears catalog and have it delivered to your lot, and you would build it, right? Now, I don't know that Zulily has a house on their catalog site, and I don't think Amazon does yet, but virtually everything else is out there that you can order and have delivered to your home. So, a lot of people think it's very low value. It's, clothing or textiles or toys, which is a vast majority of it. But it can be very high value product as well. So internet use is growing across the world. There are certain areas that are just now, that have less than 50% access. We don't really think about it in that fashion, but it's, just starting to pick up in some particular areas. And, particularly in China, Alibaba announced today that their sales in China grew 62% quarter over quarter. So it's just huge, right? It's just huge. Trade facilitation and e-commerce plays a critical role in the growth and the health of everyone's economy. And trade facilitation, plays into that, getting that product from the fulfillment center to the consumer in a timely fashion, in a compliant fashion, is a key to keeping that growth moving forward. So let's talk a little bit about what the market demands. So, as the average consumer, when you're sitting at your computer and you're getting ready to hit that buy button, what do you expect, right? So our surveys tell us that you want something that's easy and seamless, right? You want to hit that button, you want it to show up at your door the next day. Don't really care how it gets there for the most part, right? If you want to be able to track and trace it, you want to be able to do that. You want to know where it is in the process. When is it going to arrive at my door, right? And you also want it to be reliable, and you want it to be affordable, right? So all those things have to come together for us as consumers in order to make the e-commerce engine work. What do the sellers need? The sellers need a localized checkout. So they want to know if they're ordering a product in Mexico, how much is that going to cost me, duties, taxes, fees to get to my door? If I'm in Canada, the same scenario. If I'm in the United States, I want to know what is my end cost going to be before I hit that buy button. And that is also true for the international fulfillment. Doug talked about, these fulfillment centers and really, another new term, but really a deviation on what we used to call distribution centers. So now these are fulfillment centers, right? So we have people from around the world sending goods into the United States or Canada or Mexico into these fulfillment centers, and then from there's a website that people can access. You may go to Zulily directly, you may go to Amazon, you may go to eBay, but those goods ship out of these fulfillment centers into the various countries around the world. So in many cases, the retailers, have never seen the products. They don't know, what they look like. They just know that they're selling them, how to describe them, but they've never touched them or felt them. So that becomes a big challenge from a regulation standpoint. And then finally, you want border clearance delivery, and then you also want to be able to have returns and refunds in a quick fashion. If you order something that comes to the door, you don't like it, you want to be able to send it back and get credit for that particular product or exchange it for something else that you may like better. Pretty much describe it for you? Okay, so trade facilitation plays a real key into that role. Most of that work has to be done on a pre-arrival process. So in order for us to pick up something in China and deliver it to you the next day, we have to know what that product is, what it contains. We have to get all the paperwork that's going to go for that country, whether it's Mexico, Canada, or United States. Each one is just a little bit different in their regulations and what they require at the time of entry. So, that is that's a huge barrier and a huge challenge to keep it up front and get all that information prior to that cargo even moving. But we are avid, so that makes us an avid supporter of the single window. And a single window, for those that are not familiar with that term, is that having all regulatory agencies in one place, looking at the same data set and making it what we would call an admissibility decision, i.e., am I going to allow that to go to the customer or am I going to hold that? So we want to make sure that you have all the information at your fingertips directly to make that decision, and we want you to be able to make that decision in a split second, and it's either yay or nay, move on. So in terms of transportation, what we would call an exceptions, holds are exceptions. Holds are expensive. So we will work to everything that we can do in order to keep that cargo moving. I like to say that we don't really care what it is that you want. We just want to be able to we want you to tell us what it is that you need, and we want to have an electronic way of delivering it to you so that you can make that decision. We think that trusted trader programs are key to this sea of e-commerce that we're going to talk about here in a minute. Trusted trader means that you have worked with Zulily. You understand that Doug has a compliance process in place. They have explained it to you. You have reviewed that. They show you how they do and how they make sure that they meet product standards, around the world, so that you feel very comfortable in making that admissibility decision when you see something from Zulily. Whereas you might, look at something, from, Tom's Fix-It shop a little bit differently than you would, because you would know nothing about them. So trusted traders, worldwide, they're authorized economic operators. Those types of programs we think are critical to help you do your job better. We would also support post-clearance audits, so that for those items that do find that make it into the commerce that you would like to have back, we would be able to assist you and help you in that particular fashion. So, really it's all based around risk management. It's not a risk avoidance concept. So we understand that and would like to think that risk management is a better way of looking at the e-commerce piece rather than risk avoidance. So that, and we've broken the risk into 4 different categories, as you can see. There's correspondence and documents, those types of things. There's very little risk, and certainly from your aspect, there's none. From consignments that are a low value, we talked about low value consignments. There's a duty tax threshold that you may or may not be interested in. You're not interested in that particular piece. And then there's consignments with a formal declaration, but all these are based on values, right? Whether it requires a formal entry, an informal entry, or no entry, you want to make sure that product meets your standards. It doesn't necessarily, and that's not necessarily based on value. So all these things go into the regulatory process and how we can work together to make sure that we're providing a swift clearance and helping you meet your goals, and at the same point in time helping that consumer who wants just to hit the easy button to come and hit their door. So so what is the problem then? So we've talked about this surge in import volume. We've talked about the surge of new competition for domestic retailers. One of the terms that we would use is called MSMEs, and I'm sure that none of you have heard what that acronym means, but it's micro, small, and medium-sized businesses, right? So we have the Zulillies of the world who have this compliance department in place. They know what all the rules are. They research them. And then we have the folks that are sewing together fabric in a sub-Saharan African nation who have no idea what our consumer product safety rules are. And they just know that they can put up a website and sell that particular textile into the U.S., right? So it runs a broad spectrum, so that's a huge risk from a regulatory standpoint. They have a very low understanding of the rules, and they're very inexperienced not only with the transportation piece and documentation or what they really need to do. Then there's also the bad actors, right? So there's the people who want to avoid taxes and duties and have an illegitimate trade and other security threats. So we need to participate and work together so we can help identify those, because that doesn't benefit anybody anywhere. So our recommendations, is, that we would have a coordinated, simplified approach. I appreciated the young lady's question from the last panel about having a uniform, set of rules, set of documents. The closer we can get to those standards, not only for product, but also for documentation and transportation, the better off we think that we are. So establishing common simplified entry thresholds would be extremely beneficial, and having common data elements. What is it that you need to make sure that product that you can say, yes, this can come into the country, no, this cannot come into our jurisdiction. However we can make that decision, what do you need in order to make that decision and move forward? And then we also want to work together to establish that returns procedure. So I often ask people ask me, well, why should I care? I don't import. And so my question is, do you export? And they say yes. And I said, then you're an importer by default. No matter what country you're in, you're going to get something back. And so you are an importer. Governments need to, so we would like to work, to help you address your needs, to assess risks of illegal and illicit shipments, and global integrators such as ourselves and cargo airlines. We've invested billions in ways of helping you do your job, and we would encourage you to take advantage of that, whether that's advanced data, security, and compliance programs. But there are still some loopholes. I don't expect that we will ever close them all, but we can continue process improvement moving forward. E-commerce occurs everywhere. So, Doug talked again about being innovative with products. So I would, some people consider drop shipments an innovation, but who hasn't now sat there and hit the buy button, but I don't want it to come to me, I want it to go for my mom for Mother's Day this weekend, right? So, you may not know who that end party is that's receiving that particular product only because, or who purchased it just because of the visibility rules. Postal services, as wonderful as they are, many of them are exempt from these advanced data rules, so it makes it another challenge for regulators to come in and make sure that they're making the proper admissibility decisions. And then, again, just identifying all the players that are involved, who are those bad actors, and ensuring that we're abiding by the same rules in trade. We would be delighted to work together with you in order to move that forward. So, thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. You used a couple terms that really resonate with me, and I think with us here at CPSC, and those are risk management and trade facilitation. And I think, listening to Doug and listening to Stuart, e-commerce, you can see, is a delicate dance here, where you have a seller, a retailer, and you have a carrier who needs to get the product, and everything needs to work in concert for it to go smoothly. So I'd like to now turn to our third panelist, and I guess the third aspect of e-commerce is really sort of the government oversight of this and the safety aspect of it. So Carlos, I'd like to turn the mic over to you.
I'm going to speak Spanish, if you don't mind. Muchas gracias, Jim. Saludo a Doug y a Stuart. En mi presentación la divido en dos partes. La primera, pongo en contexto algunos datos importantes de México, y la segunda, algunos planteamientos de cooperación, los retos que tenemos en materia de comercio electrónico, focalizado desde luego al tema de los riesgos que podemos tener en la recepción de productos a través de pequeños o grandes paquetes. Para nosotros es muy importante lo que acaban de explicar Doug y Stuart sobre las recomendaciones para el gobierno, porque, como ya lo mencioné ayer, México está en este momento procesando un estándar voluntario para el e-commerce a partir de una serie de eventos que han preocupado a la autoridad en diferentes aspectos del comercio electrónico. Por un lado, los fraudes; por el otro, las malas prácticas de comercio; y desde luego algo que no habíamos visto, el arribo de paquetes con productos peligrosos. ¿Aquí? Perfecto. El primer punto que quiero mencionarles es que México, desde 2-3 años para acá, se volvió un país atractivo para el comercio electrónico. No figurábamos en ningún ranking de compradores por Internet. Y todo ocurrió después de la creación de un sistema moderno de telecomunicaciones a través de una reforma legal muy amplia del actual gobierno, que de un día para otro conectó a millones de mexicanos. Somos 120 millones de habitantes en mi país, de los cuales en los últimos 3 años logramos una cifra récord de que de esos 120 millones, 97.2 datos de hace un mes estén conectados a Internet. ¿Eso qué significa? Que están explorando los internautas mexicanos nuevas actividades. Si en el pasado se dedicaba al Internet, al entretenimiento, hoy 3 de cada 4 usuarios de Internet en México han hecho una compra en línea. Es decir, se están convirtiendo en una nueva alternativa para la industria en general, retail o wholesale o de cualquier tipo. Y aquí tienen ustedes el monto reciente con 17 billones de dólares de actividad solamente en un año. Es el único y hay que decirlo, es el único sector económico de México que crece a doble dígito, 20-30% cada año. Y es importante decirlo, que esta irrupción del e-commerce en México representa hoy una cuestión muy interesante. El 86% de quienes hacemos una compra en México por Internet nos sentimos satisfechos. Y nos sentimos satisfechos de la compra realizada a tal grado de que queremos hacer otra en los próximos 3 meses. Hay que decir que Profeco recibe solamente 1.500 quejas al año. Repito, en un país donde 3 de cada 4 internautas hace una compra, solamente recibimos el año pasado 1.500 quejas, lo que nos habla de que por lo pronto existe una aparente buena práctica en materia comercial. No así en materia de fraudes. En materia de fraudes, es decir, el mal uso de los medios de pago, en otra agencia mexicana que se dedica al tema, registró el año pasado en un trimestre 2.4 millones de reclamaciones por fraude, por el mal uso de los medios de pago. Pero me focalizo en lo que nos tiene aquí reunidos. De esas 1.500 quejas, el reporte que tenemos del 2017 es que el 8% tenían que ver con el recibo, con la llegada de productos peligrosos, es decir, mal fabricados o que su actualización de alguno de sus componentes generó un riesgo o genera un riesgo para las personas. ¿Cuál es nuestro escenario complicado? Que el 67% de quienes hacemos compras, de los que ya mencioné, lo hacemos en tiendas, en marketplaces fuera de México. Es decir, 52% compramos aquí en Estados Unidos, 29% en China y el 6% en Japón. El resto en otras partes de Europa y de América. Y obviamente esto nos genera un problema de jurisdicción. Es decir, como no tenemos un mercado digital de contenido nacional, nuestro reto se complica a la hora, al momento de hacer el compliance necesario con las tiendas virtuales. Yo no sé si Zulily tenga oficinas en México, pero la mayoría de las tiendas en las que trabajamos, salvo excepciones, no tienen una oficina de reclamaciones a la que acudir dentro de México. ¿Y qué estamos viviendo? Si bien es cierto que en esta mesa, y lo decíamos ayer, nos preocupa el B2B, empieza a ocurrir el social commerce o el C2C, donde presuntos, aparentes consumidores se vuelven proveedores al mismo tiempo. En México, por definición, una persona común que venda sus zapatos, sus bolsas por internet, no es sujeto de la ley de protección al consumidor, porque esa persona no es un proveedor. Entonces se están disfrazando como consumidores que ocasionalmente hacen una venta para salir impunes de las reglas de protección al consumidor. En México, en este momento en el que estamos construyendo ese estándar, estamos queriéndolos incluir, porque de algún modo son los que más productos peligrosos están enviando a través de UPS, DHL, etcétera, porque no están regulados ni controlados. Nos preocupa, lo ponemos en la mesa porque es un tema que más allá del e-commerce, el C2C puede generar un problema y desprestigiar al comercio electrónico. Y obviamente, pues los datos de crecimiento son importantes para nosotros. Si ligamos el tema del e-commerce en México, y repito, estoy poniendo esta información en el ánimo de la cooperación internacional para que nuestro estándar no se salga de las aspiraciones que América del Norte tiene para fomentar el comercio electrónico, pero al mismo tiempo para regular aquellas cuestiones que salen de nuestras manos. En México, por ejemplo, la industria de paquetería, de mensajería, las empresas como UPS, crecen cada día más. Generan más de 180 millones de envíos mensuales. de los cuales 12 millones son paquetes. La industria de la paquetería en México, de la mensajería, las empresas courier, crecen 30% cada año. Es otra industria que paralelamente en México ha tenido un importante boom, un crecimiento inusitado con el valor que ustedes están viendo aquí en pesos, casi 11 millones de dólares. De ese volumen de paquetes que las empresas nacionales o internacionales mueven en el país, el 20% de ellos ya son e-commerce. Es decir, que nuestro reto, nuestro foco debe estar en México en vigilar que ese 20% de paquetes que llegan, independientemente de otros, de las tiendas normales, no vengan al margen de la ley. En México hay regulaciones para las empresas de paquetería de que tienen prohibido, el enviar productos flamables, perecederos, armas, etcétera. Sin embargo, no tenemos una suficiente estructura de compliance para poder vigilar el gran volumen. Aquí, perdón que haga los rankings, Stuart, pero en México, Correos de México, es decir, la empresa mexicana de gobierno, es el líder en la distribución de paquetes. Es decir, mueve el 28, casi el 30%. ¿Qué es lo que estamos haciendo? Que con ellos tenemos que empezar estas nuevas prácticas de vigilancia de envíos de paquetes. Por alguna razón, Correos de México está teniendo un importante rol en la distribución de paquetes del e-commerce en nuestro país, ya sea porque la ley le permite hacer más fácil, más barato, más rápido el ingreso de productos a México. Por ejemplo, los productos que tradicionalmente los mexicanos comprábamos a Amazon, por norma entraban a través de Correos de México. Y eso facilitaba a las empresas de e-commerce los trámites de aduanas, vigilancias e importación. Los rankings aquí, los datos son públicos y obviamente ante la información de UPS, DHL, vemos que esas empresas van a crecer ante el crecimiento del e-commerce y desde luego debemos estar muy cerca de las empresas para generar ese compliance en beneficio de los consumidores. Dicho lo anterior, pasaré a comentar cuáles a nuestro juicio nuestros grandes retos. El primero es que cuando hablamos de plataformas de tercera parte o marketplaces, estamos ya teniendo complicaciones en el control de los paquetes. Aquí solamente voy a poner como ejemplo la empresa líder en México de e-commerce que se llama Mercado Libre. Es más grande en nuestro país inclusive que Amazon. Esta empresa solamente mueve 1.6 millones de paquetes al mes. Y entenderán ustedes el reto que nos genera identificar de dónde vienen los mismos y cómo vienen. Porque esta plataforma, este marketplace, este sistema, no solamente opera ventas directas de B2B, sino de C2C. Y obviamente las propuestas que nosotros estamos haciendo para nuestra próxima regulación, pues tiene que ver con autorregulación, códigos de ética, y obviamente yo me llevo con mucho interés las propuestas que hace UPS, que podemos recoger para nuestra nueva norma en materia del control de los paquetes. Debo decir, y esto forma parte ya para las agencias que colaboramos con Canadá y Estados Unidos, que nuestro nuevo estándar debe estar listo el 12 de octubre de este año, por lo que cualquier sugerencia, recomendación o colaboración para integrar este dispositivo será bastante bien recibido. El segundo reto que tenemos es cómo innovar en la comunicación de riesgos del e-commerce, sobre todo a través de los envíos. Aquí hemos tratado nosotros internamente de crear, innovar una serie de warnings para las personas y estamos en una encrucijada, en una situación compleja. Por la naturaleza de nuestros consumidores hemos apreciado y coincidimos mucho con la OCDE de que los warnings electrónicos, es decir, los warnings que se hacen, las advertencias que se hacen a través de apps, no están resultando suficientes. Y es decir, ya hay inclusive posturas en nuestro país que estamos queriendo analizar para ver sus costos, eficacia y valor, que regresen los warnings a ser en papel. Es decir, nos preocupa mucho la situación de la información al consumidor y cómo haremos para que queden claros todos los principios de las políticas de protección al consumidor desde el punto de vista de la seguridad. Estamos trabajando en un sistema paperless de los contratos, de los términos y condiciones. Sin embargo, aquí sí existe una posición todavía conservadora que insiste en que los warnings sean in paper. Y un tercer reto que tenemos es la cuestión internacional. Se nos complica mucho para México delimitar la jurisdicción de los mercados digitales. Como mencioné al principio, 67, casi 70% de las compras que hacemos los mexicanos online son a tiendas extranjeras. Y pongo en la mesa, a la hora de las reclamaciones regulares de e-commerce, no tenemos con qué representante acudir. Y desde luego, la tentación es acudir a las empresas de paquetería y mensajería para convertirlas en solidariamente responsables de ese proceso. Y obviamente, pues a nuestro juicio sería injusto un proceso de sanción al mensajero. Entonces nosotros que queremos en este momento en el que estamos, repito, haciendo ese estándar voluntario, recoger todas estas propuestas, todas estas formas de garantizar la protección del consumidor y que los términos y condiciones sean claros, que haya short notice en materia de seguridad y que tengamos pues que reconocer inclusive a las comunidades virtuales donde a nuestro juicio debemos llevarles una nueva filosofía, una nueva manera de comunicar los riesgos de las cosas que están comprando a través de las redes. Sin más, yo agradezco su atención y me llevo con mucho interés lo que mis compañeros del panel han aportado para la generación de este nuevo estándar para México. Muchas gracias. Gracias, Jim.
Thank you, Carlos. We have now just a couple minutes, unfortunately, for questions. I was hoping that we might have a little bit more time, but we would like to open the floor up for questions. If I could just remind you to speak into a microphone so that we can have the questions translated as well. But let's see if we can take questions for a couple minutes. Do we have any from the audience?
Hello. Thank you to the panel for sharing all this information with us. It's really invaluable. My name's Steve Burkhart. I'm General Counsel for BIC Corporation, the pen lighter shaver business. And one of the things that's very obvious is the great effort all of you are taking to share information among your agencies. When you talk about hazardous products being shipped, I'm thinking of hazmat products being shipped and how those, I understand, aren't necessarily your jurisdiction, but I'm wondering if the sharing efforts you all are involved in cross over to other agencies that are then dealing with hazmat shipments, because it seems to me the speed of e-commerce necessarily works against hazmat compliance. So I'd appreciate your thoughts on that. Thank you.
I can jump in just real quick. I mean, from a U.S. government perspective, I think sharing information in the e-commerce arena is a big challenge. I think just at a basic level, sharing information about packages that are coming in that are de minimis is a challenge. I think then when you drill down even further to start looking at individual requirements like hazmat, it becomes even more of a challenge. And I think that's something from a U.S. government perspective that we need to work on very closely. And I think working with the trade as it relates to that is going to be a very important aspect of that. I think, you know, as Stuart specifically mentioned, I mean, UPS has a lot of data that's available, and I think part of the you know, the challenge here is how can the government and the trade work together on information exchange to be able to identify high-risk shipments and be able to interdict them in some way. So I don't know if, Carlos?
I think that, bueno, en español, una cuestión muy importante para la pregunta que nos hacen, para el intercambio de información, es también la coordinación con las empresas. En México logramos celebrar 3 convenios, 3 agreements con las 3 principales asociaciones que tienen que ver con el comercio. Primero hicimos un convenio con la Asociación de Internet MX, es una asociación, es una chamber, donde están Google, Amazon, los bancos, airlines, donde está una serie de empresas, están empresas de paquetería y mensajería. Ese convenio nos permite a nosotros como gobierno también recibir información del sector privado para nosotros poder manejarla e intercambiarla. Hicimos un convenio con otra asociación que se llama Asociación Mexicana de Ventas Online, donde tiendas de retail tradicionales se han sumado porque hoy día han encontrado ahí una importante beta. E inclusive, lo menciono aquí, lo comenté algún día con Tilben, México, a través del secretario de Economía, firmó un convenio con Alibaba, por ejemplo, con una empresa con el objeto de que la información, las buenas prácticas y el esfuerzo que hacen ellos no violente las reglas mexicanas de seguridad. Y nos preocupaba mucho el mercado oriental con el ánimo de pues, generar protección a los nuestros. La Profeco en México tiene la posibilidad legal de celebrar convenios con UPS, con Zulily, con Amazon, con el ánimo de generar mutuamente buenas prácticas, siempre y cuando intercambiemos información. Y esa información es la que nos sirve a nosotros para determinar las nuevas políticas. Y gracias a esos convenios tenemos hoy la suficiente data para generar un estándar, y que un estándar que aspiramos sea útil para el resto de los países de América Latina. Gracias.
Thank you. Brittany, just on time, do we, oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's
Yeah.
all right. I was just going to add just a couple things here. You know, and I think that HAZMAT presents a good illustration of the challenges of uniformity, right? So there's this base concept of hazardous materials that are shipped around the globe, and there's in pretty much uniform minimum standards. However, where it becomes challenging from a trade perspective is that those standards then are manipulated by certain regulatory agencies in various countries. Whether it's just transiting through that country or not, you have to adhere to their standards. So it becomes a challenge to make sure that that particular package, you have to know the routing. Going back to what I had talked about the pre-processing information, you know, we have to know how that good is being routed. So, and then from there, then it goes back to the shipper to state that they have to meet all these countries' rules in order to make sure that it gets to the United States. So again, that concept of uniformity, it becomes very important in the world of e-commerce and the world of product safety.
Thank you, Stuart. So I think we are out of time at this point. So I want to thank our panelists for their participation and their insight today. Thank you for the questions. And I'll turn it back over to Brittany.
So we are at lunch now, the very important time of the day. So just a few things just to note as we prepare to break for lunch. There's a lot of places close by for lunch within walking distance. And if you don't want to walk too far, there's actually 2 cafes downstairs on the ground floor level of this building and the building directly across the courtyard area in the front. Just a reminder, we will return and start on our third panel right at 2 o'clock. So if everybody is mindful of the security parameters, if you're leaving the 4th floor again, you'll have to go through screening. And since I'm assuming that the majority of you will be doing that, make sure you kind of gauge your time to ensure that you can get back and get through the security in enough time so that you can get back to this space. So again, thank you, and we will see everybody back here at 2 o'clock.